All the way from the start, I can feel it in my heart, like all the way from the start.
Hey, what's going on out there? I'm Sean Devine. Hope you all are doing well. Today we're back with part 2, mixing a beat from top to bottom, start to finish. This is a beat produced by Stefan Guy. If you want to see the video where he produces this thing, I'm going to put a link to it. If you missed part 1 of us mixing Stefan's raw tracks, then I'll put a link to that as well. So check that out before you dive into this. But in the first video, we mixed the drums, the bass line, the percussion elements, and really just got the groove down and did a little bit of processing, just setting us up a brick wall limiter on the master bus, but we didn't do any processing in terms of the stereo bus just yet. We're going to do some at the end of this video. It'll be fun. But first, we're going to dive into mixing the lead, the pads, the guitars, the synths, and the vocal chops that Stefan has here. Let me go ahead and just play back what we've done with the drums so far, and then I'm going to start unmuting some of these elements so we can see what we've got to do today. All right, so the same as we did with the drums, I'm just going to go in and I'm going to get our essential balance down first. Before we start doing any effects, anything crazy in terms of automation, just want to get that that balance and that core blend. Let's focus on this little retro lead that Stefan has here first. Already got a little bit of reverb and delay processing, so we're not going to have to do a lot in terms of that. But I do think that it is a little bit upfront in terms of kind of competing with the kick and the snare and the bass. So I'm thinking we could maybe automate or modulate a filter. Let's just try maybe something like an auto filter. And just using an LFO, just create a little bit more movement, and it can kind of, come in and out of the groove rather than just be up front all the time. So let's see, maybe we can go to the auto filter. Let's open that up, see what we can do here. So I'm going to set it to a bar, and then we're sending this to the LFO so that that's being modulated, and that's modulating this cutoff. So just something subtle, just adding a little bit of movement there. And let's see here. What we may do is in this part, let's just automate the EQ. So I'm going to put a low cut on here, or high cut, excuse me. So let's leave that there, and then let's just open up our automation lane, which I'm going to press A to open that up. That's my quick key, and I'm going to go down here to the channel EQ, and we're going to go to high cut frequency, and make sure that that's opened up. It's at 970 right now, and we're just going to slowly bring that in over the course of these 4 bars until it's full. Let's try that. So maybe we'll bring this down a little lower just so it's a bit more dramatic. And then we can copy this to some of the other parts of the beat. All right, you get the idea. I'm not going to put it throughout the arrangement right now, but again, just giving that a little bit of groove and movement, make it more exciting. Now let's go over to this pad. I think that we could sidechain this possibly. Yeah, so let's load up maybe just any compressor will do. Anything with a key input or a sidechain input. And then on the sidechain, let's just go select Stefan's kick. And I think if we add a reverb to it and then sidechain it, it will make it even more intense of an effect, give it more of a swell. Pretty big tail on it too. So pad 2, is this the same thing? Let's see. Yeah, let's do the same thing with that one. We'll just copy over the reverb and the sidechained compressor that we had. And I'm going to roll off just a little bit of this stuff here at 200 or so. It can start to get a little brittle and just kind of fall apart in the low mids on laptops and things of that nature. Moving on to this guitar, let's hear what we've got going exactly. You notice that when we were doing just the essential blend, I did a little bit of panning just because I figured, you know, let's put this a little bit outside of the stereo field. But what I'm thinking is I may do a ping pong delay on this. Okay, so we've got a couple of different, it sounds like kind of chord samples. And so they're a little different in terms of just the velocity and just the frequency and the impact of them. So I'm going to put a compressor on here just to kind of keep things in check. And what I'm going to use is something that maybe some of you aren't as familiar with. It's called MV2, and it has a high-level compressor and a low-level compressor. And so by combining these, we can just really get the dynamics to be a little flatter and more upfront. And then let's put maybe a multi-band compressor. Mids, high mids that just are kind of poking out a little bit too much. They're a little obtrusive. So what we'll do is we'll just bypass all the bands on the C4, except we're going to move this to, like, say 500 up to about 4K. Maybe we'll use the high one as well. Okay, now let's get my ping pong delay out here. Let's just do maybe the H delay, and we'll do a quarter note or maybe an eighth note. I don't know. We'll see. Eighth note. Let's do 8. Okay, let's do something cool with this synth. Maybe we want it to just dance around the stereo field a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and select the tremolo effect in Logic Pro. And let's just see if we can do maybe a pretty slow rate here, just so it really hits each side of the stereo field pretty good. Okay, which synth is this? Yeah, I want to keep that one tucked back a little bit. I think that was the idea here. But let's add a cool reverb to it. Maybe the Valhalla Vintage Verb. Man, such a nice reverb. Put it on anything. Just sounds good. You can get carried away with this very quickly, but we're not going to do that today. And I want to make that pretty wide. So let's try something cool. This is actually a free plugin. It's called Wider. And it does just that. Pretty cool, right? One more element that we haven't touched, and that is this vocal throughout the track. So let's add a pretty big reverb to this, except we're going to do maybe a gated reverb, which can give you some interesting effects for your vocal chops. And I'm going to select the gated reverb type. Let's do a little bit of stereo bus sweetening with the IM Pusher. This is a fun plugin to use for this when you're just getting to the finalization of your beat mix and you just want to get things to commercial levels and do just a little bit of doctoring to get it to be as polished as possible before you send out the 2-track. So first thing, we want to bring this up to commercial levels. I'm not real sure exactly where we're at this point. So let's go ahead and pull out a meter. All right, so obviously in terms of true peak, we're just below 0 because we've got that brick wall limiter that we set up here in IM Pusher, but we've got a pretty good ways to go to get it to commercial levels. So I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to bring this push control up. So you can see a little bit of gain reduction, and you could hear when I was pushing it too much, we started to get some crunch on the kick. So that's the thing you want to be really careful about with your stereo bus processing using a limiter like this. We don't want to rely too much on it because we start to wreck the dynamics and the sound of the drums that we work so hard to get. So we got to be real careful not to push that too much. So I brought the kick and the snare down just a little bit because as we introduced this pusher, it just changed the sound of it just slightly. So we want to keep it consistent. Now let's go up here and let's add a little bit of highs. So in this case, just switching over to the limit mode, I think that actually sounds better in this case with the way that we have the drums mixed. And you've got to experiment, y'all. I've talked about it a lot. Not all limiters are created equally, and you need to really use your ears to understand what is happening. And if it's not working, then you need to switch to something else. You'll see I have a lot of different master limiters, and each of them have their own strengths. Some of them work better with different types of music, different material. So you just got to be really aware of what's happening. So I introduced a little bit of magic. This is just some mid boosting, some stuff like that that's going on behind the scenes. I'm not going to touch the low control or the body. I think we got plenty of that. All right, y'all. So we have mixed all of our instrumentation as well as the vocal chops, and we've got a nice overall essential balance to our beat. So we talked a lot about just starting out and getting the relationship between our tracks to work. And then we start thinking about effects and things that we can do to really make things more exciting, make certain things stand out, maybe tuck certain things back a little bit to give room for the other instrumentation, and also thinking about it in terms of an artist, coming in and recording over this beat at some point. We also did just some very slight mastering processing just to get us to commercial levels and make sure that we had some nice polish on this thing so that we can get the 2-track out there and have it knocking for the songwriters and artists who are going to be approaching this thing. If you have any questions about the plugins or the methodology that we talked about in the video mixing this beat, feel free to leave a comment below. If you learned anything, please like, subscribe, and consider sharing. We'll talk to you soon.